Hello there, Gregory Carlson here, and welcome to part 3 of 1.8. 4 to go. I have a feeling we might have some trick questions in these 4, so let's keep an eye out for that. So look at this one first. We see there's an inequality, so we need to see if it's an and or is it an or problem. And because it's less than or equal to, the x and the absolute values are less than this number, that makes it an and problem. And so in fact, it might even help to write this next to it. It's an and problem. So let's follow the procedure for that. Negative 130, 1 over 30, less than or equal to the inside of the absolute values, less than or equal to positive 1 over 30. And that's the procedure each time. You do the negative this number, the inside of the absolute value, and then the positive. So let's solve this for x. The first thing to do is to multiply to get rid of all of our fractions. So the lowest common multiple of all of these numbers is 30. So we'll multiply everything by 30. Remember, you need to multiply each term, so don't forget to multiply this term by 30 as well. Remember also that if this was negative, we would have to flip the signs. But we're okay this time. That cancels to make negative 1. 30 cancels with 6, and 30 becomes a 5. So we have 5 times 5, which is 25x, plus 30 cancels with 5 and becomes a 6. 6 times 1 is 6. And 30 cancels with 30 and becomes a 1. So that's a lot easier to deal with. Negative 1 is less than or equal to 25x plus 6 is less than or equal to 1. Now let's solve that for x. Minus 6 on all three sides. So we get negative 7, 25x, negative 5, and then finally divide by 5. By 25, I mean. Divide by 25. Because that'll get x all by itself. So this is negative 7 over 25. It's less than or equal to x is less than or equal to. Let's reduce that fraction and make it negative 1 over 5. So there you go. This is a larger negative number. It's more negative than this one is, so don't be afraid that everything is negative. Putting this in interval notation, it'll be negative 7 over 25 to negative 1 over 5. And that's it. That's the only values x can be. They're brackets because in the original problem we had a less than or an equal sign. 3 to go, so let's keep going. The absolute value of 4x plus y plus 9 is less than 4. Because we have x and y, we're not going to be able to find an answer to this, at least one answer, but maybe we can find a bunch of answers. So let's try. Let's start by isolating our absolute value. Minus 9, minus 9. Absolute value of 4x plus y is less than, 4 minus 9 is negative 5. And now you need to recognize what's happening. Is there any value that'll make this true? Is there any values for x and y that if we take the absolute value of them will be less than a negative? And the answer is no, because the absolute value of whatever you put in here is going to be positive. So there's no way, no matter what x and y are, there's no way for this to be less than negative 5. So there is no solution to this problem. If you wanted to, you could put the empty set or an empty set of brackets, up to you, but it doesn't matter what x and y are. If this had been positive, it would have been a little tricky. We could have figured out some other way of doing it, but you're not going to need to know how to solve that problem for now, so I'm just going to omit it. Maybe we'll look at it in class. How about this one? The absolute value of 7y plus 4 is bigger than 0. Well, if there was an equal sign right here, it would be all solutions, because this is always going to equal 0 or be positive. So this will always be true, but since we don't have the equal sign right here, there's one number that this can't be, and that is 0. So let's go ahead and solve 7y plus 4 equals 0, because that's the one thing that will not make this work. Minus 4 minus 4. 7y equals negative 4, divide by 7, divide by 7. So if y is equal to this number, negative 4 over 7, then that is not a solution, because that would equal 0, and 0 is not bigger than 0. everything else is going to work. If this is a negative number, it'll be positive and that'll work. If it's positive, obviously that's going to work. So how do we do the entire number line minus this 1 point? The way you do it is negative infinity up to the value. Then you put a parenthesis here because we're cutting it out, or that value with a parenthesis to infinity. So this is basically the entire number line, except I cut out -4/7, the only value that won't make this true. So if you wanted to, you could say all solutions except y equals -4/7. But this is how you would want to write it in interval notation, and you need to know how to do that. Last problem, and I'm losing my light. What are the solutions to this? The absolute value of this stuff is bigger than -9. What do you think? No solution? Infinite solutions? Somewhere in between? This is going to have, this over here is always going to be positive. The absolute value of this is always positive, so that's always going to be bigger than a negative number, whether it's 9 or any other negative number. So this is all solutions, or infinite solutions, or all real numbers. In interval notation, it's negative infinity to infinity. That's how you represent the entire number line. So the procedures for solving these are different depending on the problem. If it's an equal sign, you just write the equation twice, once with the positive, once with the negative. If the value is greater than the number, then that means you're looking at an OR problem where we're blowing up the two ends of the number line. And so you get a union and two answers, one going to negative infinity, one going to positive infinity. If it's an AND problem where we are being constrained, then that means you set it up like this and you get a one interval answer. And finally, just be on the eye out for these trick questions, especially when negative numbers or 0 are involved, because they will be out there. This wraps up all of Chapter 1. There might be a few questions on the chapter review that I haven't covered, in which case I'll make a separate video for those. But page 1 through 15 of the notes are what you are supposed to know for this first chapter of college algebra. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's supposed to be like a review to try to cover topics that you should have coming into this class. Please make sure you study the absolute value stuff. This is the place where in the past students have struggled the most, so you should do some extra practice for it. Thank you so much. I will see you in Chapter 2. Good luck on your test. Happy studying. If this video was helpful and you're not in my class, please like it and subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.